Have you ever felt like your backpack, your hiking pack, is just swallowing you whole on the trail? It feels heavy, it feels uncomfortable, and you're just carrying too much weight. Well, today we're slicing into that extra weight. We're going to cut down the weight of your pack. So stay tuned to transform your hike from a burdened slog to a breezy adventure. Hi everyone, Mauser here. Welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, I'm Mauser. I'm here in Tasmania, Australia, and I've been hiking in the wilderness, through the scrub, doing all sorts of things for over 30 years. Now, we've all been there. We've all been overpacked, underprepared. I've done it heaps of times over the years where I've just gone out on the trail, I've got a huge pack, I've got a mountain of gear, and I don't end up using half of it, and I just thought, what am I doing? But not to worry, I've got a bit of a system, it's under control now, apart from all the camera gear that I sometimes take, which I'm trying to cut back on. We are diving into the art today of lightening your pack. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it, let's get into lightening your pack. So just let me tell you where this story starts. Back in the day, I've been hiking for, since the mid-90s, and I headed out on a big 26-day walk many years ago with my mate Woolser, and we headed out on that walk with around 36, 38 kilos of gear each over 26 days. I mean, just ridiculous. I'll talk about that more in a sec, but ever since that day, and I look back on that now and laugh at myself. What was I thinking? Took some crazy gear, but I thought it's about time I did a bit of a guide, a bit of just a ramble. Today I'm just rambling. I'm just going to talk about ways you can lighten your pack, ways you can make it easier to walk by lightening the load on your backpack. Now, the first and probably the easiest way to save any weight, even if it's going on a day hike, is to repackage the necessities. First up, let's talk essentials. Now, you don't need a massive big 120 gram tube of toothpaste for a weekend trip. Now, that is common sense, but believe it or not, as a hiking guide, I would see people bringing all sorts of crazy things on hikes, including hair dryers. Now, while that is crazy, you're a common sense hiker, I know, and you didn't come here to hear stories about me telling things about hair dryers getting brought on hikes, but it was pretty funny. So yeah, things like going and getting a small tube of toothpaste. Whenever I'm at the dentist each year, I just get one of those little sample tubes of toothpaste. I actually get like 3 or 4 of them, put them in the drawer for my hikes. So then I can just take these little tiny tubes of toothpaste on a hike, or you could squeeze some into another little reusable tube if you wanted. But the idea is you are getting stuff down to a smaller size and quantity as possible. And this trick just doesn't apply for your toiletries, things like that. I apply this principle to my food as well. Pretty much everything I take gets repackaged into smaller packaging, even my food. And you would have seen that on my food video, link is below. On that food video up there, you can see how I repackage all of my stuff into daily sort of little allocations of food. It helps me not only repackage it, get rid of all the packaging, save a bit of weight there, but it gets my quantities absolutely spot on, so I'm not carrying too much food along the way, especially on a multi-day hike where 100 grams here or there in extra food can really add up. Another way where you can really save some weight if you do it clever is your sleep system smarts. Now, your sleep system can really make or break your pack weight. If you go too crazy, it can weigh literally kilograms of gear. So when you are designing your sleep system, if you're in the process of upgrading your sleep system, really do your research. Look at things with sleeping pads like the correct R value. That's what sort of determines the heat transfer ratio. So the higher the R value, the warmer the sleep pad. You may be walking in summer all the time. You don't need a sleep pad with all that high an R value. Therefore, you can get one with a lower R value, thereby saving some weight. And I did go into my sleep system on a couple of other videos. Links to that will be below, as well as up here. But you can really save some weight there. And like I did say on a recent one, I now use a quilt. And the weight saving there in taking the quilt is amazing. I've got the Katabic gear. Come on. I don't know how to pronounce it. I need to look that up. Hang on, I'm going to look up right now. How do you pronounce Katabic?
This quilt might just be the most unique quilt out there. The Katabatic Flex quilt is...
Well, there you go. The Katabatic... What's mine called? Katabatic. So, where was I? Sorry, got distracted there. The Katabatic. Everyone happy? Everyone's happy now. Katabatic quilt that I have, the Alsec, goes down to -5 degrees Celsius, and it is only 655 grams. Now my regular sleeping bag, which I do love, the Patagonia something or other, put on the screen, is a great sleeping bag, but if I'm not going out in absolutely freezing cold, guaranteed snow sort of conditions, my quilt is coming every time. 655 grams of that for my sleeping pad that I'm currently taking. Have been looking at reviewing that, but I have got the Thermarest Neo Air X Lite, and that's 480 grams. So I've got about 1.1 kilos in sleep system. That is basically, I take a pillow for a bit of comfort, but I've saved all this weight, so I can take a little bit of extra comfort. But look at your sleep system. Look at where savings can be made. That is one thing, and one thing that I'm always looking at, is there a few more grams that can be shaved here or there if I want to lighten my pack? So there's heaps of options out there. There's heaps of gear reviews. Do your research. And even if I'm not planning on buying any new gear, sleeping bag, that sort of thing, I'm always just having a look around, adding it to my list in my notes, which I've talked about before as well. But in my little notes in my iPhone, I will just put bits of gear in that I'm interested in. Then one day, if I am upgrading that gear, I've got a little reference library of notes for all that gear that I've been looking at over the last few years. Where else can we save weight? Well, funny you should ask. Another good spot to save weight is in your tent. Yeah, the tent. That's one of your heaviest bits of gear, or it can be, when you're heading out on a hike. And I've done a lot of research about tents over the years. One thing, if it is your thing, it's not necessarily my thing a lot, but one place you can save a lot of weight, and it's a big craze these days, and there are some very good tents out there that use tent poles for their, not tent poles, they use walking poles for their poles, not tent poles. That's why you save the weight. You're not taking the tent poles, you've got walking poles instead. Now, my only thing I don't like about these, and I've got a tarp tent Stratosphere Lee, whatever you want to call it, which is a tent pole tent. I did buy the extra poles for that because I have snapped so many walking poles over the years that what if I'm out there and I snap my poles? I guess I could repair it. I've tried that before, but that's just one thing I think about. Plus, I do like a freestanding tent. I think they stand up to the wind better, personally. That's my personal opinion, but it is a good spot where you can save some weight. If you go for a trekking pole tent, something like that, or a Durston X-Mid, which I would love one of those one day. They look like a great tent. You can save some weight there as well. And with things like, if you're going in summer all the time, you can get just a mesh inner, although they sometimes weigh a bit more than a nylon inner. I prefer the nylon inner. That's just the way I am. Prefer that. But a weight saving can be made with a tent, and if you go with a tent pole tent. Now, if you've already got a tent, I would stick with that tent. If you love that tent, stick with it, split it up between 2 people. Fit 3 people in there if it's a 3-man and you really want to save some weight for a big trip, do that. Now, another really great spot where you can save some weight in your pack is just by becoming a bit of a doyen, a bit of a wardrobe wizard, by showing some wardrobe wisdom. Now, something I have seen a lot over the years is overpacking of clothes. I'm guilty of it as well. I've done it. Been there. I always just, as I'm about to head out on that walk, as we are locking the car, I go, oh, I just need one more jacket. I'll chuck that in the bag. I'm guilty of it, honest. But one thing you've really got to do when you're heading out, especially on these big 8, 9, 10, 11-day trips, you want to get your wardrobe down as minimal as possible. And that means taking just your essential items. It means taking your raincoat, your pants, your one set of thermals, one set only. That's it. Maybe one spare pair of underwear if you're just being a bit extravagant. I'd normally take one set of spare underwear. Only one pair of spare socks. Maybe a second spare pair of socks if you like some cotton socks to wear around camp, or some nicer, thinner socks to wear in camp. But you've really just got to look at all your gear. You need to lay it all out on the floor. And this is what I do. I've done that before in a recent gear video I did, which you can look at up there, where I just lay all my gear out on the floor and I just see exactly what I've got there. On a big 8 or 9 day trip, I'll spend 2 or 3 weeks with it, just sort of in baskets and spread out on the floor, and just going through gear, picking stuff out. I don't need that, and I'll chuck it in the basket of maybes. I'll have a basket of gear I might be taking, I may be taking, and just constantly trying to modify it to get down to as little gear as possible. And when you're out there, you end up wearing the same thing every day anyway, and any extra gear you do take ends up not coming out anyway. So really think about your gear. Look at it and think, am I going to use this piece of clothing that I'm about to pack? And if you're worried about smell of stuff getting stinky, air it out while you're out there. You know, get a sunny day, hopefully, along the way, air it out, or, you know, take a tiny little tin of deodorant if you must. But, you know, embrace the natural scent of the trail more than anything. You don't need all these extra clothes. get rid of some of them, but do take the essentials. And you can check out my layering video also for sort of tips on layering and staying warm in cold conditions. Another spot where you can save weight, well, ditch the books. I mean, it was crazy. 20 years ago, my mate Walls and I, we headed out on a 26-day bushwalk, Southwest Epic. Check out the blog post for that down below. We didn't have a video camera then, we just couldn't afford one. But 26 days, and the gear we took was absurd. I wish this video had been around then, because I probably would have rethought some of my life choices on that walk. It was ridiculous. I took probably here somewhere, I took the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like that thick that book was. We also took a big thick one as well. We took notebooks to write notes in, like hardbound notebooks. Leave the books at home, leave the paperback guidebooks at home, take photos on your phone of notes, read books on your phone on the Kindle app or on whatever reading app you've got, get that in there. Just the track notes that you need from a book, just photocopy them or print them onto paper. I use waterproof paper and I print on both sides. So any track notes I'm taking, because you've always got to have the hard copy, don't get rid of it altogether. Just print them onto waterproof paper. I will print 2 pages to a page and then on both sides of the page on waterproof paper. It holds up really well. I'll find a link to waterproof paper in Australia and leave that below. But that's a great way to save weight as well. On that big walk as well, that 26-day, we even took John Chapman's Southwest guidebook as well. What were we thinking? I guess that's why I started with 36 kilograms. Craziness. Anyway, ditch the books, onto the next one. Another thing to consider when you're heading out to hike is water and how much you're going to have to carry, because if you're not aware of where water can be collected along the way, you're going to end up carrying probably more. You can check ahead before you go, see what the water situation's like along the route. That can make a big difference to your days. Where we were at the start of this year, the Western Arthur Range can get very dry in sections. We checked with others before we left for the dry sections of the track, and we had good detailed information about a week or so out, and we could tell where the water was going to be drier than others, and if we would have to carry extra water for days, which we didn't. And that saved us potentially carrying an extra 5 kilos each of water on days where we may have had to carry 2 days worth of water in a drier season. So always check out your water situation before you go and what it's going to be like. Also, if you're going to go through sections where it is very dry and there might only be small soaks or small ponds where you got to get water, don't forget your purifier as well. And on that note, take note of your water vessels too. A lot of people take heavy metal bottles like those SIG bottles. They used to be very popular back in the day, but like I spoke on a recent video for a Christmas gift guide, that one up there, I have a collapsible water bottle that I now take. It weighs about 100 grams, but it crushes right down. I can pull it out, I can put my electrolytes in there and mix them up, but it's a lot lighter, some of those big, heavier bottles that you take. And in addition to that, I just take a water bladder for bulk collection of water. Another thing you can consider is footwear flexibility. Now, I'm not a huge fan of going hiking wearing trail runners. I've been into that before. Look, each their own. If you're going to wear trail runners, that's all good. I trail run, I love trail runners. I wear sneakers every day, everywhere I go. I wear trail runners most of the time when I'm not hiking, but I just prefer boots when I'm hiking. But it's certainly a weight saving that could be made if you prefer trail runners over boots or lighter sort of boots. Boots can be heavy, but I have broken my leg, my ankle before, and that ain't much fun. And I guess it's a psychological thing with me now that I just don't trust myself in trail runners. But if you do, it's a good option. And then you probably don't need to worry too much about camp shoes if you're wearing trail runners as well, because they easily slip on and off. Not a bad option, but again, it is a potential weight saving area if you're comfortable in trail shoes. Where else can I save weight? Well, thanks for asking. Another one you can do is simplifying your kitchen. And one of the best things you can do is you can toss away the bowl, you can toss away the plate and eat directly from your vessel, from your pot, or you can do what I do, and that is eat directly from my little snap lock bag that I repackage. Remember that repackaging of the meals? I repackage my meals into a snap lock bag and eat straight out of them after rehydrating them in my Hyperlight Repack sachet heater thing. So That is another great way to save on weight as well. Now I don't have to take a plate. I just take my small cooking pot that goes in my jet boil stove, and that saves me a fair bit of weight. It also makes cleanup a breeze. There's basically no cleanup, and it's one less thing you have to fit in your pack. It's very nice. Now, another place you could save weight there is with the stove. I prefer the old jet boil these days. It's around 300 or 400 grams, something like that. But you can go lighter. You can get the methylated spirits, alcohol stoves, much, much lighter. Again, they're going to save you a whole heap of weight. If you want to go down that path and it's going to be fairly calm weather, highly recommend that. But if you're going to be in potentially very windy, very rough conditions, I prefer a jet boil style stove or the MSR style stove. So that's another one that you consider as well. Then another thing you can do at the end of each trip is audit your gear. So that means when you get back from your trip, as you unpack, I like to just spread it all out outside if it's a nice day, or in my garage. I just get everything out and just put it down, and I'll have a look. Did I use everything here? I know you're tired. You just want to go and have a shower and get... I clean up everything before I have a shower or do anything. I've got to get it sorted out. Maybe you don't, but I know a lot of my friends don't. But anyway, I digress. But you just want to audit your gear after your return and just check it all out. Did I use all this stuff? And if you didn't use it, take note of it, throw it in a basket to the side so you can remember, and you can take note. I did not use that thermal top I took this time because that was an extra one I packed right at the last minute as I was getting out of the car. Just take note of the stuff you didn't use. It can make a big difference on future trips. And on that note, as you are preparing for your trip, you should have your gear list. And again, I will leave a link below to some basic gear lists that I use. I will also leave a link below to 2 gear lists that I have on LIGHTEN and Pack Wizard. They are down below as well. For some of my gear that I'm trying out Pack Wizard, I normally use LIGHTEN to just check out all my gear and calculate all my weights. I love that app, but I will leave links to that. But audit your gear. I'm always looking through my LIGHTEN lists, through my spreadsheets, through my gear list, trying to find stuff that I have that I do not need to take. So just make sure everything on that gear list that you have, your final gear list, that is what's coming, nothing else. So leave behind things like wallets. Like you don't need a wallet while you're out on the track, or credit cards or anything. Get rid of all that stuff. I know it doesn't weigh that much, but it makes a difference. And some of the stuff that I will toss out at the last minute as I'm getting out of the car are things like camp shoes. Am I going to need these camp shoes on this trip? They're a luxury. They're a luxury item. Don't necessarily need them, and on those bigger trips they are often the first thing to go. When I'm sitting there at the car, just one last look at my gear, the camp shoes, they're gone, they're out. There's 200 grams saved right there. Just really doing a brutal assessment of all these little extra add-on items that maybe shouldn't be coming. The weather's looking good, I'm not going to need camp shoes, they're staying behind. A chair, do you really need a chair? Well, I do. The chair is always coming. I can't eliminate that. I can't do it. I cannot do it. But if you've got a chair and you're really desperate to save some weight, get rid of that chair. Get rid of it. But like I said, I can't do that. Look at stuff like I shouldn't even be saying this, but have a look at stuff like your camera equipment. Do you really need to take that massive big tripod there? Do you really need to take some extra filters and stuff? Do you need to take the little thing that spins around and makes your camera do cool stuff to get cool panoramic shots? Probably not. You'd probably be fine with just an iPhone. And I have made a commitment to my hiking buddies that I'm going to go light next year on our 10-day trip that we're planning. And I'm going to just try and shoot the whole thing on an iPhone. I'm sort of waking up in cold sweat at night just wondering how I'm going to cope with that. But I'm working towards it. And that's how I'm going to save weight on my next trip, is by ditching a lot of this gear. Cameras these days, the phone cameras will do the trick. I've talked about that before, but that's a good spot to save gear as well. If you're like me, if you're an amateur photographer, just reassess your whole camera situation when you're heading out on a big trip. I've been having a long, hard look at myself lately. It's a good spot to save some weight. Another good spot to save weight is in your food. Now, I'm not saying to just toss a heap of food out and take less food and go starving while you're out on the trail. No, I'm not saying that. But plan calorie-dense meals. That's like, you get more bang for your buck out of a more calorie-dense meal. Try and look at that. Focus on high-calorie, lightweight food. Think of things like peanut butter wraps, good one, cheesy salmon pesto. These are delicious and efficient meals. They save in weight and they still fill you up. They still give you the energy you need. One of my favorites for the first 2 days of the hike is to take peanut butter and avocado rolls. I love those things. Just a roll chopped full of peanut butter and avocado provides heaps of energy. 1 or 2 of them at lunchtime. These little bread rolls are great. Learnt that from Rich Roll, who I'm a big fan fan of, but we take them on walks, looking at the packaging, looking at how many calories you're getting per 100 grams, that sort of thing. Really pay attention to that, do some research online. There's heaps of content out there about food and stuff you can take. I will try and find some links, leave them below. But if you pack the right food and take the right quantities, you can live like a king and get much lighter weight food happening for a trip. So I will take maybe 700 grams of food per day on an 8-9 day trip, and I'm pretty happy with that. Could probably even get a little bit lighter, but I'm happy at that situation. Then just look at other stuff. Look at things like headlamps, rechargeable headlamps. You're probably taking a charging battery anyway, but even then, charging headlamps these days, like my favourite, I'm going to say it again, the Petzl Bindi, that thing will last me 8 or 9 days without a single charge. It weighs about 38 grams, I think, off the top of my head, the Petzl Bindi. But any of these lightweight torches, you get a long battery life out of them, and you don't need to carry spare replacement batteries. I used to always carry spare replacement batteries in my big old chunker head torch. I used to have to take 4 AA batteries, the 4 that were in it, 4 spares. It was out of control. Areas like that, you're going to save a lot of weight. Take rechargeable stuff that will hopefully last the whole trip, and you won't need to charge along the way. But if you do, you've probably got a backup battery you can give it a bit of charge from. And finally, one of the last sort of things I can think of, this is purely off the top of my head, a lot of this stuff today, but the last thing I can think of where I have saved a lot of weight is in my actual pack, my backpack, my Hyperlight Porter. I love that pack. It's about 1.5, 1.6 kilograms, but I used to always carry a big solid canvas pack for years that weighed over 3 kilograms. By converting to an ultralight pack, which can still carry a decent load, I've saved, 1.5 kilograms at least in pack, which was on my back before. So that has probably been one of my biggest weight savings, was in that pack. Worth doing your research on packs, and even if you can't afford one now, even if it's not on the horizon, just keep that in the back of your mind. One day when you need a new pack, really look into these things. I've loved the Hyperlight brand. I've seen other ones out there. There's plenty of brands coming and going, but have a look into them. Good weight saving there, and worth the investment when you can do it. So that's it for today's video. That is just a bit of a guide, bit of an off the top of my head, bit of a ramble about where I think you can save weight with your gear when you're heading out on a hike. Have a look at some of those links below. There's lots like the lighter packs, the layering system video that I did. It's going to save your weight. All that stuff ends up saving weight because it's coming up with an efficient system to analyze and use your stuff. So just implement these as you like, maybe one at a time, do something here or there, and hopefully it'll make a difference to your pack weight. If you found these tips helpful, then please like the video. Don't forget to subscribe down below. And if you subscribe, you might as well hit that little bell icon as well, and you will get notified of when our weekly video drops. In the meantime, I've got a skedaddle. It's getting warm outside. I just need to go for a bit of a walk. Haven't done much today. I've been sitting inside working, and I need to go get some fresh air. So till the next one, I will see you somewhere, probably back here on YouTube, I guess, and maybe I'll bump into you out in the trail. You never know, do you? So I'll see you next time. Till then, have fun and stay safe. See you next time.